Hello and welcome to Gadget Inspectors Express, where we bring you the big hot technology news in little bite-sized chunks. And we're discussing the Nokia Ovi Store. It is Nokia, the world's biggest mobile phone company's attempt to take on Apple and its famous App Store. And there has been a storm of controversy about this, a wave of hatred directed against the company. It failed, and it was all over the Twitter sphere and the blogger sphere. Claudine, was that justified, and is this Ovi Store good enough to take on Apple's App Store?
Here's the thing, Nokia has got around 50 million smartphones in circulation, and it's a smartphone that you need in order to be able to access the Ovi Store.
Yeah, worth briefly pointing out that my relatively modern Nokia 3G phone, it's not good enough.
No, it's not sophisticated enough, I'm afraid, Harry. You need to upgrade. Apple, on the other hand, has got around 17 million iPhones in circulation. So I think already you can see that there's a huge potential market here for Nokia application developers, 50 million people that they could be pushing their products to versus sort of 17 million for the iPhone.
Okay, now the dust has settled. We can now actually get onto the App Store. What do you think the apps are like? Selection and quality of apps?
A little bit disappointing, actually. I think it suffers from a few of the problems that we found with the BlackBerry App Store when we tested that a few weeks ago. I think we've been slightly spoilt by the iPhone. It's got 35,000 apps on there. Admittedly, that's not the number it launched with. But
and there are only 670 on here.
Yeah, so already you begin to feel that it's a thinner selection, which is perhaps a little unfair. Got to give it some time.
Thin, I think, is a little generous. I found it so wafer thin that I could pour water through it. I mean, for instance, if you search for news, all you got was Reuters, AP, France 24, and bizarrely the Daily Express. But there was no BBC, there was no Daily Telegraph, there was none of that, no CNN. Oddly.
Also, sometimes searching for stuff was a bit clunky as well, wasn't it? You wanted to search for something to do with sport and it didn't bring up any results.
Yes.
So either we were looking in the wrong area,
yes,
or we did something wrong. But the point simply being that considering the kind of broad spectrum of people who'll be using this, it needs to be really simple and intuitive, and obviously it wasn't, because there were sports apps, but we just couldn't find it.
Okay, so the searching was difficult. How was the actual downloading?
Actually, that was surprisingly simple. It's sort of one touch. You need to set up an account on Ovi Store, which you can do either online or directly on the handset itself. But actually, the purchasing mechanism is really simple, so full marks for that.
Right, and the big question is it going to be any good or good enough to challenge Apple's App Store?
Give it time. I think you've got to give it time, but you cannot deny that there's a lot of people out there who'll be accessing this store. 50 million smartphone users, you know, that's a lot of people. And I think developers eventually are going to find the motivation to start developing.
Okay, marks out of 10?
7 out of 10 bags of potential.
Ah, that was very generous. I'm going to give it 3 out of 10. I'm a lifelong Nokia user and a big fan of the lovely little Finnish company, but they have boo-booed on this. The App Store has got a terrible selection of apps, and I don't really want to use any of them.
No pleasing sign.